Hi, my name is Ryan Villanueva, and I'm a results leader.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
Yes, y'all. It's time once again for another ResultsLeader.fm. Welcome all to the show that's all about results. And today's interview is extra special to me because people don't always understand why we do this podcast. And obviously, it's to push the idea of results leadership and shine a light on those folks who are getting results for their clients. And the guy on today's show is helping us get results. Mr. Ryan Villanueva. He's a business coach, and he's also found a way to turn his passion into a business. Let's jump in. Ryan, welcome to the show. Are you ready to rock this thing?
JR, let's do it.
All right, let's give our listeners a quick win. What book have you given most as a gift?
I have to say Traction by Gino Wickman. That book has made a huge impact on my business and my professional career. So I've definitely recommended and gifted that one out a bunch.
Yes, indeed. I was looking for my copy yesterday. It's all tabbed up and highlighted. And I can't find it anywhere. And I'm really jonesing for my Traction book. So I feel you, brother. Let's go to story time. Tell me a story of how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
So I believe the question is referring to a personal failure, although the failure I was thinking of was the 2008 global financial crisis, which was a big, massive systemic failure for a lot of different reasons. And I go back to that because at that time I was an analyst at Goldman Sachs. So I was right there in the belly of the vampire squid. My job was in the group I was working for to make sure that in the event of a financial crisis, that this bank would not go bankrupt. That was like my job, liquidity risk management. And I started on the desk in like July of 2008. And 3 months later, September 15, Lehman Brothers files for bankruptcy. And the whole world's like on fire. And I remember going into the office that day. Everybody seems to be freaking out. And I turned to my fellow analysts. I'm like, is this normal? They're like, no, this is not normal. This is what we've been preparing for. And I wanted to start there because, that was a massive systemic failure. For me personally, I was, again, the low-level analyst. I was just doing a lot of reporting. I was doing analysis that I could provide to my superiors, but it was very stressful. I remember being very stressed out, even getting depressed at one point. I learned a lot, but my own job performance started to suffer at some point. And I remember, I had a 2-year contract there. I was just feeling like, man, I'm not really performing at my best. I would learn a lot from that experience. I would quit Wall Street, end up starting my own business. I've been an entrepreneur now for the last 10 plus years. But the experiences I learned at Goldman, as tough as it was, I use a lot of the skills and knowledge I learned during that time. I use that almost every day in my career now as an entrepreneur. From really technical things like financial modeling to presenting and working with other executives and professionals, definitely an understanding of finance. And I feel like it actually sets me apart from other entrepreneurs today in my job. So it was a really tough experience. And it was both a systemic, financial failure, as well as I felt as my personal job performance, not performing at my best. But I think back now and I'm like, wow, I'm in a way better place because of all of that. So I'm actually very thankful for the experience.
You had to be getting paid pretty well over there. What made you strike out on your own?
Reflecting on that before I left, I was like, the pay is good. There are nice perks. If you stay after 7, they'll pay for dinner and taxi after 10. But what really I found the hardest thing, the thing I was most attached to was actually the prestige of saying that I worked on Wall Street and being able to tell my parents, my grandparents, all right, cool. I got a job out of college and it's here. And for them, that was pretty important. But I realized I was missing passion. It just wasn't what I was passionate about. And the money was nice, but I was if I could go back to anything, if I could quit tomorrow and do anything in the world, what would it be? It was to take a blog that I'd started in college about a subject that I am very passionate about. And that subject was Model United Nations and turn it into a business. And I was that's the craziest thing I can think of. But if I'm being honest, I would rather do that and give it a shot. And at least say I took the time and took the risk. And if it doesn't work, then I'll go back to business school and I'll work for another bank or consulting firm. And I was like, wow, okay, there's nothing holding me back except my own fear. And if that's true, then I gotta I got to give it a shot. And that's why I quit Wall Street to start a company.
What would you say is the most worthwhile investment that you've ever made?
I was thinking about this like financially in terms of the financial results too, if I could quantify it. The thing I picked out was my membership in the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO. It's a business association with like 15,000 members globally, 200 chapters in over 60 countries. And every member is a business owner with a business that generates at least $1 million in annual revenue. So business owners tend to be at a certain size in this group. And I just think like from the first event that I attended in 2014, where I was handed the books, like Simple Numbers, Scaling Up, and Traction, that's where I discovered a lot of that content because of this group. The people that I met, other business owners, peers, coaches, mentors, including my mentor, Eric Cruz, who I do a lot of work with today. And I'm like, wow. And then if I compare how much that helped me grow my business, like within a year of attending that first EO event, I saw my business double in growth, headcount doubled in growth, and it's been growing ever since. Professionally, I've grown a lot. And if I look at that little growth, and I could quantify it financially in many different ways, compared to the like dues that I pay into EO and the time that I put into it, I was like, oh yeah, that has been a very, very worthwhile investment for me.
What do you think was the biggest contributor to that doubling in growth in that first year?
Number one, like a certain mindset shift, right? Before discovering EO and Traction, I think I didn't even think of myself as an entrepreneur. So I think finally like doing that, joining that group was like, wow, okay, I am an entrepreneur and business owner. Secondly, definitely having like key people involved in the business and hiring like at first like real leaders in the business. And then thirdly, starting to implement like business systems to make it all consistent. That definitely helped us all grow.
In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
On this one, definitely a combination of behavior and belief. And that was definitely therapy. Starting to work with a professional therapist and kind of like changing my perspective on like mental health. It's something I just never really thought about growing up. And maybe there was a certain stigma with it for me growing up. But from a couple years working on Wall Street, I had some people I respected a lot being like, I think you should like start to talk to a professional. I did. And I've been working with the same doctor for the last like 10 years and just really opened up a whole new world for me and really helped me out a lot. So I would say that's the whole thing.
What does that mean to you, mental health?
Think of it with mental health, but the more holistic word I think is like well-being. It's like overall, I think of it in terms of not just physical health, but I think there is like mental and emotional health. I think of like, there's a health in terms of my relationship with myself. Like, how do I look and perceive of myself? And am I okay with how I'm behaving and who I am? As well as my relationship with those around me, with other people and the people I care about the most. And I think having those things in balance, like that's what it means to have, I think, good health and well-being.
What was the stigma? There was a stigma around that.
I'm Filipino American and my parents immigrated from the Philippines. And I think growing up, I didn't know anyone who like worked with therapy. I didn't know anyone who was in therapy or worked with a therapist. And we didn't talk about like mental health as like issue. I think it was just kind of assumed that you would just work through whatever you were going through. And I think I just kind of assumed that. It wasn't until college that I was first even introduced to the concept of mental health and like, you know, why that might be important. And even then I like didn't take it seriously. I just thought of like, okay, whatever, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. But when I think again, working those years, like during the financial crisis, like I kind of went through like my own real struggles. And I was like, this is important. I do need to take care of myself. I do need to ask for help. And it's okay to do that. That was like a big, big journey for me.
What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
I don't know if it's an explicit recommendation, but definitely like an assumption. I'm very passionate about social impact and sustainability. And I think there's a presumption that this is the area for like nonprofits or like governments to like get involved with. And I think that's a bad presumption or a bad recommendation. I think business owners of all sizes, like this is important, I think, to all business, actually. We all have an impact, and whether it's positive or negative is like up to us. But I think to not take that into consideration at all, I think is a mistake.
All right, we're about to get into the results portion of the show. But before we do that, I got to ask you, have you shared the show? If you're digging what I'm laying down here, then I want to ask you to share this show with somebody who will find it helpful. Share it on your social medias. Use the hashtag ResultsLeader and I'll be looking for you out there. Thank you. Let's talk about results. Why do results matter?
I thought this was like a super interesting question because I'm like, shouldn't results like obviously matter? Like, isn't that the point? And people don't think that way. And when I did think about this question, I was like, all right, fine. Yeah, people do focus a lot on like the input. What am I doing? Or like their product or service. But why results matter to me, my things evolve both in business and then my own like personal finances and life. I think of it as like, the point is not to deliver this product or service. The point is to deliver an outcome. Like if someone is not buying like a milkshake, they are buying like a very convenient and easy way to like have a nutritious meal, something to satiate their hunger in the morning on their way to work. That's a classic example of Jobs to be Done by Clayton Christensen. And I think about that in my own services, whether it's in my Model UN business and like, what am I doing for kids? It's not a summer camp on its own. It's like, yeah, that is the business, but we are helping create like future leaders here, right? Like we're really inspiring students. And I think of it in my consulting business as well. It's like, yeah, I'm implementing business systems. I'm working with teams. Well, what's the real outcome? Driving revenue, profit, valuation, definitely. What is that really doing? I'm helping the business owner, the entrepreneur, and their teams like live the lives they want to lead. Like it's a broader outcome than just the product or service I'm delivering.
In the last 5 years, what new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
I think that focus on outcome and results, thinking about it from that perspective, and therefore not quote unquote just being happy or focused on like, okay, did I deliver this presentation well? Am I implementing this system or teaching this thing? And thinking more holistically about like, what is the real outcome I'm trying to create here and what will help make this client successful or this student successful? And backing into that and also like holding myself accountable to that. Like, what does it really mean to create success for the people who have entrusted me with their time and dollars? I think that's been a game-changing kind of way to look at business.
Now, I want to play with that idea a little bit because, I mean, the show is called Results Leader. But what about those people who are just focused on inputs? Because that's one method of thinking, hey, I can't control the outcome, but I can control my inputs. What do you say to those people?
I think that's a good start. Like that's where I started. And I don't like blame people or judge people or whatever, like where they are. I do think like in terms of say distribution of work or like why is someone at a contributor level versus a manager level versus a director level versus like executive, right? Like at a company. And if I'm consulting any of my own business clients. And the difference I think is individual contributors and managers are held to like the deliverables. I'm managing a project. I'm delivering something. That's great. That is useful and valuable. But the reason why I think executives are at that level is because they're being held accountable to an outcome. Like the very premise of that, yeah, there are things outside of our control, our direct control, is frankly like where a lot of the value is captured, as well as the risk. Because like, yeah, it may not happen because you're playing at that level. But I think that's the premise of like entrepreneurship and business is like identifying key risks and we're trying to create value out of that. That's what I would say. I think, someone's focused on inputs. I think that's great. I would just point out like, yeah, if I look at a business, that's this level of work is input focused. But if you want to move up, if you care about that, then it's like we're trying to drive a key outcome. And I get it that maybe not everybody's like that. Not everybody wants to get to that level, and that's fine too. And they're the artists who they just want to create, and like that's it. And I love that too. So I think there's many ways to look at it, but yeah, having an outcomes focus, especially if you're in business, like I think is huge.
What area of your business would you like better results?
I did think about something very perhaps tactical, but for your audience, I was like, well, yep, an instant way to drive sales, like for anything, revenue, sales, or like the key numbers, right, that are driving your business. I do find it challenging in my own business, like working with clients and their business and like, how do we consistently hit our numbers? But I do think that is like, it is the job. It is what we're trying to figure out. It's like how to do this in a repeatable and consistent way. I think I can be doing better, and I'm trying to invest more in my own like knowledge, experience, education, community to find other people that are committed to results and delivering key outcomes and like hitting their numbers for themselves and their clients.
So you're saying in terms of finding other people, are you talking in terms of building your team or people that are potential clients? What are we talking about?
I think firstly, I was thinking in terms of like fellow peer business owners, consultants, coaches. There's like, I find such a wealth of knowledge in speaking with other consultants and other business owners, both at Cruise Consulting and especially in EO, in the Entrepreneurs Organization, and experience sharing. So I think that's been a big driver for me, is just having a community of peers to learn from. And then I think from that grows like a much broader sort of like network in that business sense. And then, like building a team. But finding fellow peers for me has been huge.
When you think back, what results are you most proud of?
If I really have to dig all the way back, especially to that like financial crisis kind of moment, I am really proud of the business that my team has really created. And I really want to recognize like my business partner and co-founder, Kevin, like our team of dedicated educators who've helped really build this business, the students and the families and the teachers and the schools that we've had the privilege of working with over the last 10 years. And for me, it's super cool. If I look back, like this was an activity that I did as a kid, Model UN. And I turned it into a blog and I thought I was done. And I could not have imagined that like 20 years later, like that blog would become like the central resource for this entire community who like are passionate about this activity, that use it, and that it inspires them to like, create future leaders and global citizens. I'm very proud of the business and the company that we've created.
Any parting thoughts you want to share with the results leaders who are tuning into us right now?
One thing I feel I've learned in the last year, and it's been really impressed upon me, is how the purpose of a business ought to be consistent with the purpose of the business owner, right? I think about business purpose as well as like personal, like life purpose. And I've reflected a lot about how one of my company's core values, but also like what I've kind of started sitting with as like a purpose for me, is the idea of like bringing out the best, like myself and the teams that I work with in my own business, my own team. I hope there's something in here that does that for your listeners.
Plenty, my brother, plenty. Where can our listeners learn more about you?
From my education company, check out learnmodelun.com. And that's where we teach kids about Model United Nations and global citizenship and student leadership. And for those interested in learning more about how to grow their businesses' revenue, profit, and valuation, cruiseconsultinggroup.com. That's the consulting firm that I'm a part of. And we help entrepreneurs and their teams lead their ideal lives.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ryan, for chilling with us for a little bit. Thank you, results leaders, for tuning in. Another episode is in the can. That is a wrap for another edition of resultsleader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to resultsleader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard. We'll catch you on the next one.
This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.